action.
Hello and welcome to the latest Grudge report where we talk about the Foundation. Today we're going to talk about Season 1, Episode 7, which is called Mysteries and Martyrs. So if you haven't seen this episode, hit pause, go watch it, and come back because we are going to spoil all of it and we are going to overanalyze the science or lack thereof in this episode. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Margaret Reeb of the SETI Institute, and right now I am coming to you from the guest house at the Allen Telescope Array. So I'm in Hat Creek, California, and Franck is joining us from his shed in San Francisco. Franck Marchis is a senior astronomer at the SETI Institute and chief science officer at Unistellar. So Franck, we got some interesting things going on in this episode. Should we start with the Anacreons and the Foundation folks who are approaching the Invictus Imperial warship? What did you think about this? I know you like asteroids, and I think there is some debris in the Trantor belt, they call it, which is where Invictus has appeared.
So apparently they are in a belt of asteroid, as you can see from the scene when they approach. It's very dense. There's a lot of asteroids. So it's not really an asteroid belt that we have around our sun. It's this more like kind of a ring of very dense particles coming from a planet that got destroyed maybe or something. We don't know. But this has been used in the past for mining because when they approach the area, Hugo, the thespian, notice the presence of a platinum mines facility, and he mentioned that he used to work there because apparently
and that his back hurts just looking at it, right?
Yeah. The thespian apparently had been using mining technology to produce minerals for their planet. So they are technologically advanced. We already knew that, but now we have kind of some more indication that they are truly capable of doing. They were capable of doing some great thing technologically speaking. But this stopped, as Hugo mentioned, because as soon as they lost contact with the trantor and the Empire, they could not get access to the machinery they needed for that, so they don't mine anymore. So it's kind of ending. It's the end of the technology. So those are abandoned mining facilities. But then the spaceship arrives, and we can see the Invictus, which is the Imperial gigantic ship capable of doing space jump. And here the scene is interesting.
The World Killer. I thought that was a really interesting line.
The World Killer. Apparently, it was an extremely powerful spaceship. We will probably know more about it. Their goal is to go inside. So what do? They could have approached the spaceship very close, but there is debris probably. They don't really, and it's not really pretty. So what they do, they put their spacesuit, which are very classical spaceship. It looks like the spaceship we see in The Expanse.
Yes, this whole sequence reminded me a lot of The Expanse, which if you haven't seen our Grudge reports on that amazing show, check them out. But yes, it felt very like it could have come from The Expanse world, right?
Yeah, they open, and then the first one to jump is the person which is the least qualified to do that, the person who's never been to space, once again.
She's having a crash course in space.
I love the fact that she's kind of counting 1, 2, 3 and about to jump, and then Salvo, and then Farah push her. And then she has to, so here we talk a lot about the physics of space, in space already, but remember when Farah pushed Salvo basically take a speed and a direction, and normally she follow a line. She basically will move following a straight line at constant velocity. That's the definition of being in microgravity without the motion in microgravity. But she has on the spaceship some kind of micro thrusters that she can use to guide herself. So she kind of flying into space. And this
it's
very
like counter forces, right?
yeah.
She's got like it's like almost like Iron Man, where she can right.
It basically is probably jets of gas that kind of using action and reaction move the body in different direction. It's there is probably an AI working here to make sure that she's not spinning on itself, because remember, if someone push you like that, what's going to happen? You can go straight, but you can also get the movement spinning, and this will never end in space because there is no friction. So somehow she got stabilized by those micro thruster and AI on board. I'm totally making this up. And the goal is to reach the inner ring of Invictus and not to be detected by the defense system, because there is still a defense system, as we know later on, because when they land, they start walking and two people did not follow the recommendation and come too close to each other. And that's
they did not socially distance.
Exactly.
And therefore,
They did not socially distance. Thank you.
they paid the price. But when they land, they didn't talk about this, but it seemed to me like, again, in a callback to The Expanse, or they had gravity boots. You kind of hear them clink.
Yeah,
that's what I thought was going on. Did you get that impression?
It's probably magnetic boots, I will say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like we have in The Expanse, except we don't have the red tiny light that turn on.
Oh, that's right. They're not called gravity boots. They're just magnetic boots.
And of course, one of characters did not follow the instruction properly. He did not read the instruction probably. That's what happened. And Hugo start floating away. He lost the control because the thruster didn't work apparently, or something. We don't really know. And
that's what he seemed to say. He said the suit was malfunctioning, but whether that was user error or the suit, unclear. But he's floating into space, or so we think.
And you cannot stop someone, of course, like that. So she tries to catch him, and that's the only way you can stop the person. But so yeah, we lost Hugo for this episode.
Yeah,
and
I think unless we see his dead body, I am not writing him off, because before they jump off of the ship to go to the Invictus, they're trying to hatch some sort of plan to get out a distress signal.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going to happen. The other thing that's interesting that I just wanted to note very quickly is when they're having a discussion before they leave the ship for the Invictus, Farah talks about jump technology, and the Imperial captain says, the Empire considers jump tech a state secret, which kind of is an interesting thing to think about in our discussions of the way that the Empire controls technology, and that's how it gets its power. So I thought that was an interesting note. Do we want to talk about what's happening inside the ship once they get inside?
Yeah, let's do that, since we are on Invictus now. So when they use the commander of the spaceship Imperial spaceship to open the door, because he's the only one who can do that. So now we know what it was useful for. And as soon as this is done, they kill him because he's useless. Because Farah is
she is straight to the point.
Yes. And she was right in a way, because he has nanobots, and he explained too, he has this kind of device that record and stream live almost to the Empire. So he could have been a spy as well and tell the Empire what's going on. So then they enter in the spaceship, and in the spaceship, we have really truly a ghost spaceship. We have floating bodies because there is no gravity, very low temperature, probably less than 0. So everybody is frozen. And he's been in existence for thousands of years, and you can still see the bodies because they've been frozen for thousands of years. And the main task is to restart the regulation system, or basically restart normal temperature and an atmosphere into the spaceship. So they managed to do that. And they also restart the gravity. We don't really know how it works. And in this show, I will say that the gravity is still a mystery to me. We don't really know how the gravity does work in Foundation. They press a button and boom, we have a gravity.
Instantly, gravity is.
Yeah. But hey, we have gravity. It's 10,000 years in the future, so maybe they found a way. And they can finally remove this spacesuit, and I'm pretty sure the actors loved it this moment, because it must have been very painful
So they didn't have to wear their helmets
to do all of this.
Mm-hmm.
And they start walking around the spaceship and they realize that we have this kind of weird light pulsation. And here the scientist was extremely useful. You may want to explain this.
Well, the scientist who was the leader of the foundation, Louis Pyrene, he recognizes that the lights are flickering at a steady cadence, and it's steady, and then all of a sudden it's like goes from 15 to 14 seconds, or it's steady, and then it the time frame collapses. And so they piece together that the jump drive is acting up, and that it's malfunctioned, and it just sets to random coordinates, and the pulsing of the light is an indication of a countdown in a way to when the next jump will be initiated. So they know through some math, quick head math, that they have about 4 hours to figure out how to fix the drive, or they are all going to be on the ship when it jumps to a random coordinate. And they don't want to be marooned in a part of the universe that they don't know about and they don't understand without supplies. And they also are a little afraid that they could jump into the middle of a sun and die. So it's a pretty precarious situation.
But the probability that they jump into, just to be the dry scientist here, they jump into a sun or a planet is extremely low, because the universe...
I was wondering if you were going to say that, because wouldn't it be way more likely? I would say 99% of their jumps, they would just end up in open space.
More than 99.9999999. I could make a calculation that it's a very small number, because matters, sun and planets are a very small percentage of the universe. Okay, the universe is made of void mostly. So if they have to randomly go somewhere, it's very unlikely they will land or end near on a planet or in a planet. Okay, but it's a risk. Yeah, but Farah says that she said, well, in the best case scenario, we are going to die instantly because we end up in a star or nearby a black hole. Okay, that will be, she's right. It's going to be the best case scenario, because if not, they're going to be basically going from empty space to empty spaces over hundreds of years. Living together in the same spaceship is not going to be a fun time. There is nothing to see.
Or they don't have any food anymore on the ship.
Oh yeah, I forgot this tiny detail. I'm sorry.
Or water. No, so that's the slow death that she's talking about. Probably is just wasting away without an escape, which is extremely scary. So
there is one scene in the spaceship I want to mention, is that I think it's interesting that Salvo finally put stuff together and tried to explain to one of the acolytes of Farah that this is a suicide mission. Okay, and this mission will affect the entire galaxy. Because if the Empire found out that they stole this spaceship and they destroy part of the Empire or anything, the Empire will have a very strong reaction. Last time they collapsed the Star Bridge, they basically have destroyed 2 planets. So imagine if with this spaceship they destroy something important on trantor itself, like Farah claims they will be able to do. The reaction of the Empire will be enormous. They will probably wipe out the entire part of the galaxy, the entire outer system, as she mentioned. And Salvo realized by looking at this guy, because she has this power, that he has families, he has kids, and so on. So she mentioned to him, this is not going to help you and your family. On the contrary, it's going to end it for sure. So she's trying to kind of guide them out of this the Farah influence, which is very terrorism to the extreme. So
yes, because Farah has nothing to lose. She has no family, and she's ready to burn everything down.
And Salvo knows that, because she also read the mind of Farah. She noticed that she has nothing to lose.
That there's nothing. Yeah. Yes. So I'm sure we will be spending more time with these folks. in a future episode. But for now, how about we go to Trantor, since we've been talking about how Pharaoh wants to destroy it, because we get a glimpse into a lot of interesting technology that has been in the background, but we haven't seen it explained very much. And I would be remiss not to note that Dawn and Azora have a moment together that could or could not result in a baby, which I think is anti the genetic dynasty, but we'll see. And then she offers him a gift. And what's that gift?
Those are kind of contact lenses, advanced contact lenses that will allow him to see colors. It's interesting, the technology. You may have noticed that Trantor has this kind of technology design, which is 19th century somehow. Every time they give each other, yeah, they have these robots, insects. It's beautiful though, and the contact lenses are the same. They have small details. We also see that on the bracelet that he wears to get this aura that protects him, the kinetic aura. It's also nicely done. He has this very beautiful design. It does look something from the 19th century of our time.
Yes.
So we it talks a lot about, in this episode, we have two things. First, we see the technology of Trantor more, and we see the planet more. And you remember we saw the planet dark and planet city where people live at the 50th floor and never see the sun, and only people of the Empire can do it. But then Azara realized that, mentioned that since the scar, suddenly the planet changed. Because people now can see the sun, can see the stars. It changed, the environment has changed because of the scar. People can basically go toward the scar and finally see up, something they could not do in the past. We see the cities kind of repaired itself. There is public transportation, which are very advanced. So I kind of like this scene because we realize that Trantor is not a city only for the Empire. It's a city by itself with human beings living there and their own technology, their own food and so on. So
right, yeah, and Dawn rejects the color correction lenses for reasons that we'll get into, but at a very high level, his whole life has been about perfection. Even the gardens are perfectly symmetrical and everything always has to be in its place. And something that Azura says about the scar in this scene is that it's chaotic and vibrant and there's so many interesting things going on. And the Empire sees the scar as a failure because it's a sign of their imperfection. But actually, to your point, there are so many other people on this planet and they love seeing the sun and the stars for the first time, and it's given life to them. And I think that Dawn finds that intriguing because another bit of their technology is she uses like a spy bird to show him this part of Trantor, right? Isn't that the end of the episode, close to the end? Which is very interesting. But do you want to talk? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Let's talk about why Dawn refused to wear those contact lenses. He basically doesn't want his brothers to know that he has an imperfection, and he revealed to her that, and to us, that in fact there is copy of himself. She's kind of so the goal of the Empire is to make sure there is always 3 emperors, right? And what they want. To have 3 emperors, they have a spare copy of yourself growing in a tube of one of each of the Cleons, growing into a tube or whatever, and they have also an artifact on their head which record continuously and stream the data to this copy. So if one of the emperors die, it can quickly be replaced by this copy of itself, which has the same consciousness, the same memory, etc. So there is in fact 2, at least.
At least. Yeah. And it's not even just if they die, he says, if they're damaged, or which I think Dawn thinks that he's damaged because he goes on this long rant, and I can't remember all of them, but he says, I eat my starches before my meat, and all the other clones eat their meats before their starches, and I clasp my hands in this way, and I'm colorblind, and no one can ever find any of this out because I could be gone in a minute if they decide that I'm not this perfect clone that they're going after, which is terrifying. The poor kid.
So he's probably, he's living into this fear that they will realize that he has an imperfection. He's not exactly identical to them, and kill him and activate this copy that hopefully for the Empire is a perfect copy.
Yes.
So the reason that show Trantor so beautiful as well is because then there is an exit for him. The exit will be to leave and go live on Trantor and become anonymous. And that there is an interesting scene here as well where we can see more technology. They basically show the nanobots running through his blood. So those are we don't know what nanobots are because we don't have them. But in science fiction, those are tiny robots, very small in size, the size of a complex molecule typically, which are capable of doing things such as detecting cancerous cells in advance or fixing part of the body if you get damage. So like a cut, etc. I don't think we have seen them in action yet, but we
have actually. I rewatched this episode, and it's at the very beginning where Farah is on the ship with the Imperial captain that they have taken because it's his nanobots that are the identifier to get on the ship, and she cuts him, and then we see them just fixing his cut.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So but we don't see the nanobots in the same way that when Dawn puts his arm up against light and you can see them in his veins, right?
Yeah. So they're big, by the way. They're bigger than
yes.
But anyway, so those are nanobots are also spied. They will allow anybody to know where it's located. So she explained that we can get rid of that. We can change his face. He can basically become another person, anonymous again, and go live on Trantor with her. It's a big romance, big dreams of teenagers, I would say.
Yes. I have not seen any additional episodes, but my gut tells me that this is not going to end well for these lovebirds. But maybe since we're talking about Dawn, we should talk about Day and
pick up with lovebirds.
Now we're going to go to the antithesis of lovebirds and talk about Day, who is still on Maiden. And one of the first scenes that we get is him having a very heated conversation with his robotic advisor, Dimrazel, because in the last episode, she bowed to the mother, this figure.
A demagogue. That's the way they.
Yes. And so he's upset with her because he thinks that she's being disloyal.
And she's not a good example of reincarnation herself. He's very mean with her. It's very direct. But she's a robot and she has a logic. So what we learn in this scene is that you remember we talked briefly about the law of robotics of Asimov, right?
Right.
It seems that she has a law above these laws, which is to protect the Empire or to make the Empire exist. I don't know exactly what its frame. And so basically, she's gonna be anything she will do. It's only it will be always for the good of the Empire. And she explaining that to today. She said, "Look, I did nail true, but my algorithm will have forbid me to do it if it was not good for the Empire. I did it for the Empire because it's good. It was a way to kind of brand it or something like that. She doesn't say that exactly, but the important part here is really truly that she does not follow the law of robotics that Asimov had in place a long time ago before this book. She has a law above it, and I think this is going to have an impact in the future in the story. She does everything for the good of the Empire.
Yes, and not the good of the emperors, the individual emperors, but the Empire. And I do think we also have to take her word for things at a certain level, because I don't know if robots in this universe are capable of lying, but it seems like I agree with you. Something's going to come of this whole conversation and her protocols. But I don't really think that Day felt much better after this conversation.
No, because even if she kneeled for the good of the empire and not for the good of the emperor, it means that she's not here to protect him. She's here to protect the empire.
So. Whatever that may mean. Yes. But Day, who is very confident, perhaps even arrogant, I think it's very safe to call him arrogant, thinks that he's going to be able to outsmart Halima. And so he says, okay, I got to figure out what she wants from me, like what I got to write a check for. And I'm going to go figure that out right now. What did you make of the conversation? Let's negotiate, right? And so
he goes. That's what he said.
So he goes to an interesting place that it seems to be maybe right outside the main city, where there is this spiral, and there are a bunch of pilgrims trying to make their way through the spiral to something that I think is called the mother's womb. And many of them have terrible injuries when they come back out. And she's tending to them, and he appears to do negotiations here. What happens, Franck?
Well, this is not science, but I really like this scene, because what happened is basically she said, I don't want to negotiate. I don't have. First, she called him Cleon. I love that. Like about his first name, basically.
Yes.
And she said, no, I don't have anything to ask you. The only thing I have to tell you, because day comes that we are going to install a satellite security station to protect your world on the top of bringing clean water. And she said, no, I don't care. What I know is that you are an anomaly. Then the genetic dynasty must end. You must basically disappear. And then she goes another step ahead when she said, and look, we are a religion of 3 million followers. How many people did it take to destroy the Star Bridge? She even threatening him at the same time, because she basically said, if you're against our religion, we will always find a bunch of fanatics that will come and destroy part of Trantor or destroy your empire. So obviously the negotiation did not go well, because what we discover is that Halima doesn't want to negotiate. She basically said, no, you need to be out. You and your fanatic dynasty.
Yes. So she is, I don't know if I'd call her a religious extremist, but she is one of those people who can't be swayed away from her, her religion. She has this point of view, and she herself, I think, is a tad bit arrogant, but she is allowed to be confident for the reasons that she said, because, if anything happened to her, there are tons of Luminists who would not be really happy about that. So that's what's giving her the gumption to call him by his first name. and call him. I also loved how she ended the conversation, where she just said, I have many people's souls to tend to, and walks away with insinuating that he again doesn't have a soul. And left him speaking.
So his solution, because he's not going to let this go, to announce that he's going to appeal to the triple goddesses themselves. So he's gonna walk the great spiral. He's gonna do this pilgrimage. We see.
We shall see. I'm not sure if he's used to being out in the elements, given that he's grown up in the palace on Trantor, but who knows? We have one more stop in this episode to discuss, and it is the ship Raven, where Gail ended up after her life pod dropped her off there 34 years after Harry was killed. And we find that that there is something called a quantum consciousness protocol. And there's an issue with the neural uplink, but Harry Seldon has inputted his consciousness into the ship's computer system, it seems, which is interesting. He's kind of a glorified AI, I would say, maybe.
I would say,
yeah.
That can be at different places. So he's an hologram plus an AI at the same time.
He's a ghost. He's a ghosty hologram guy. And it's, he leans in. He doesn't have memories of anything that happened since his death, because the protocol was initiated with the knife that Gail had in her escape pod and used as a key to get inside. So that's what triggered all of this. So Gail has the unfortunate task of telling Harry everything that happened. And that didn't go over super well.
Yes. It doesn't go super well, but we found out about a bit more about what happened, why Harry took this decision. One important part is that Harry had what they call Lens syndrome, which I did not find. I Googled it quickly. I did not find that true sickness. So someone can correct me if that's the case. But it's basically a degenerative sickness that makes people brain to kind of deteriorate over time. I see you Googling. You are doing it right now. And then, so since he found out he has the genetic anomaly that apparently cannot be cured, I have no idea why, because in 10,000 years in the future, apparently they can genetically modify people. So we'll assume they will be able to cure this kind of sickness, but it's not possible for Harry. So he knows he's going to become crazy and crazier and crazier over time, and he's not going to be able to lead the foundation. So the brief summary is that he realized that to maximize the chance of the foundation to survive, he needs to become kind of a myth. So he's killing himself. The plan was that he will kill himself. Rach will find him. Rach will leave then later on to find him on the spaceship. And in the meantime, the foundation will basically build statue and talk about Harry Seldon as a hero that saved them all. And he will become this myth, and he will help the foundation to stay alive. Okay, to have a common goal. That was the idea, and Gail basically screwed up the entire plan by witnessing the killing and taking the space of Rach into the spaceship. So we have problems here. We have a big problem.
Yes, and one of the major reveals at the very end of this episode, Harry is sort of needling her to realize. She says she can feel the future. That she has these sort of tugs inside of her where she gets a feeling of doom or something akin to that for other situations. And she knows that something's about to happen. And that's what led her to interrupt the killing and thus mess up the plan and not be on Terminus.
So that's the reason she has an impact as a one character on psychohistory, because she can feel the future. So she can probably manipulate psychohistory on a very short scale of time. So she deflect basically the big plan of Harry Seldon by just being around for a few minutes. So it's a problem. And I don't know if they have a solution, but the only solution they have so far is to go to Helicon, the planet of Harry. That's where the spaceship is going.
Yes. Well, as a brief aside, I did Google Leith, and it is not a disease, but Leith is the name of a mythic river in the underworld, from Greek mythology. And if anybody drinks from it, they have complete forgetfulness. And so that is a call, or, that explains why the disease just erodes your mind quite quickly. So that's interesting. But let's talk about Helicon, because we know that it is around a dark star, and from the discussion in this episode, it sounds like the darkness is from a debris disk. Is that right?
Yes. So the darkness seems to be coming from a disk, or we see a disk when the spaceship arrived. Yeah, but when you look at the star, you see the star is almost completely opaque, hidden by a dust, a cloud around it. So it seems to be a very young star system. That's the way I interpreted it. And so when the spaceship arrived, it seems to be arriving through the disk, because the planet may be in the disk. So that's why. So we start here seeing, sometimes we see the spaceship and we see bombardments of particles on the spaceship. So this is going to be a problem, probably. I don't know how they're going to make sure that the spaceship is not destroyed by this continuous bombardment of particles, dust, and planetesimals. That's the way we call them on the spaceship. But we are going to probably see that in the next episode, I guess.
There is a scene where when she's talking about how she can feel the future, she realizes that there's like a golf ball sized bit of debris.
Yeah.
And it comes through the window and she holds up a piece of, it looks like glass, some sort of technology that she's holding to stop it. And the ship patches it up. But if there are that many of them or something bigger, the size of a planet, like you're saying, I don't think that the ship could repair itself. So,
I don't think the speed of those particles is typically is bigger than the speed of a bullet. So I don't know how they're gonna be able to slow down all those particles, but we see. This is the future.
Okay. This is the future, and I'm excited to see. Anything else, Franck, on this episode?
No, nothing else about this episode, but I want to talk about where you are.
Okay, let's talk about it.
So you are at the ATA, the Allen Telescope Array, right now?
Correct. I am.
And the thing on the right on the screen that blink, is that a machine that tells you when we are gonna get a technological signal? It's gonna become red?
I wish it was. No, because we are so close to all of the radio telescopes, we can't have technology like Bluetooth or wireless networks or cellular networks because that interferes with the telescope's observations. Everything in the world gives off radio waves, and the amount of which depends on what that thing is. But we don't want to get in the way of the radio waves that the dishes are observing. So I'm currently plugged into Ethernet, and that box, I have a wire running from that box all the way to my computer here at the living room table. So yes, if you ever need a personal technology free trip, I recommend coming to the ATA. But it's amazing up here. It's beautiful. It's very remote because, again, you don't want a lot of interference. And also the elevation, I think I don't want to misspeak, but I think it's about 4,000 feet. So, it's really cool.
Good. Send us pictures.
I will. And if I get any heads up about alien signals, I'll let you guys know.
Okay, you let us know in advance? Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah, totally. We'll do a whole Grudge report about it.
Okay.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. As always, we appreciate it. We are a product of the SETI Institute, which is why I'm at the Allen Telescope Array. And the SETI Institute is a nonprofit research institution concerned with the nature and origin of life in the universe, which is why we have 42 dishes looking at the sky to see if we get any interesting radio pings that could be signs of technology from other civilizations. So if you're interested in this, or you're interested in the Grudge report, or you're interested in, my thoughts and Franck's thoughts on other shows, hit one of the links below. Check us out. If you're so inclined, we would love a donation. It's not necessary, but of course, always appreciated. And we will see you next time.